All right, so recording has started. So we are here to hear from Charly. She's VP of Salesforce at CGI. She's a Salesforce MVP. She's a global co-leader of Ladies Be Architects. She's a rad women coach. So there's so many things. And I've personally, as I mentioned earlier, like I've watched her videos on Ladies Be Architects on a variety of topics, like right from sharing architecture to identity access management and so on. Like so many of them. So further ado, Charly, would you mind taking over the screen and telling us about how to be an awesome and the best architect?
I will try my best. Thank you very much for having me. I think you need to stop sharing so I can start sharing. Yeah.
Right, there you go.
All right. Let me share the right screen so I don't show you my shopping list. I always have a HEB page open somewhere. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go into presentation mode. But now, where are you guys? I've lost your faces. Hang on. I'm going to figure out how to get you back.
Yeah,
Uh, so,
browser again separately. So
okay. I can't see the chats and the questions then. So, will you monitor that for us?
absolutely.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm so um, honored, really, to have been invited to kick off this inaugural architect community group for Dallas Fort Worth. It's incredible to see these groups pop up across the country, to see how we as architects finally get a community of our own. We've worked very hard over the last couple of years through the Ladies Be Architects so that we can build a community of architects where we can support and help each other. So, as you guys know, I'm Charly Prinsloo. I'm now 18 times Salesforce certified. I kind of went through a dry spell the last 2 years, but I got one cert so far this year. I'm still on my journey to become a CTA. I've done the exam twice. I failed twice. That's okay. I will try again. Life takes us on all these journeys, and we go through seasons. And the last 2 years hasn't been a season for me to focus on it. And hopefully, in the next couple of years, I'll get back to studying to become a CTA. I am currently working at CGI. I'm the vice president of Salesforce and run is one part of a wonderful team that makes up the Salesforce practice at CGI. I'm also a co-leader of the Ladies Be Architects. The Ladies Be Architects is a community group, just like this one, where we get together and support one another in our journey to become architects. And it's not just for ladies; it's for men too. And you'll see we have a YouTube channel. There's hundreds of videos where we learn together. I'm not the definitive expert on everything. And the best way for me to study is usually to speak it out with someone. So we've got those study groups for Ladies Be Architects. And it's really fun working with people and getting things wrong and figuring things out and learning together. Well, let me stop introducing myself. You guys know me. I'm local here in Austin, not in Dallas, but I am in Texas. You can tell from my accent. I just wanted to comment. You know how incredible it is? Paul is from South Africa. I know we're connected on LinkedIn. We haven't actually met. Elaine is from South Africa. Ritu used to work with me. Karen Froelich was on the call. She had to drop off. She works with me currently. It's amazing to find a community that, even though we are so far apart and we are representing so many parts of the world, but we are united in the work that we do. And Salesforce has given me the opportunity to create a career and also change my stars, change my destiny. And one of my life missions is to pass it forward because I'm so blessed. So let me stop talking nonsense and just get into it. I know we said I have 10 steps to become a well-architected architect, but when I started working through the material, I realized I actually just have 3 steps, just 3 things, which is easier than 10 to remember. And you guys will also be glad to hear that you are my guinea pigs. This is the first time I'm presenting this material. I am one of the Salesforce Well-Architected architects. I'm a mentor and a part of a task force that we help Salesforce with this content. So I'm really, really happy to be able to present this and take you guys through what is out there in the community and what's available to us. So when everyone did the intros, I heard there were some people that are admins that want to hear more people that just started their journey and want to find out what is this all about. So I'm really glad I added this into the deck just to talk to you about what is an architect. And when I say architect, I mean a Salesforce architect, definitely not a landscape architect or a home architect, but a Salesforce architect. Because the word gets used all over the place. So I'm going to go out of presentation mode because I really want to, if you guys can you all come on camera? I quickly want to ask you a question, if it's possible. For those of you that can come on camera, I want to quickly ask you something. And I want to see your hands. That's all I really want to do. Nothing. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and do something horrible to you, I promise. So May, please help me count the hands. I want you to raise your hand if you've ever had to, no, not yet, only answer the question. I want you to raise your hand if anybody's ever come to you and said, oh, can you build this in Salesforce for me? Or can you do this for me? Have you ever had to build someone else's requirement? Raise your hand. Whether it was in a project or whether you was an admin, or have you ever had to build a custom field or a flow or someone asked you to do it and it was part of your job? Raise your hand. Has anybody ever came to you? Keep your hand up. Has anybody ever come to you and said, hey, I have a business problem and I need it to be solved with Salesforce, and you had to figure out how to do that? Keep your hand up. All right. So if I look for all the videos I can see, you all have your hands raised, or the majority of you. So who here are architects? All of you, because you raised your hand. All right. Demonstration over. The point I'm trying to make, guys, is being an architect sounds super cool and it sounds prestigious. And I guess it is in a way, because architects work hard, but so does admins. And I've been preaching this for years. There's a fine line between being a Salesforce admin and being a Salesforce architect. As architects, we are admins, and we have to, the concepts of Salesforce admin, we practice them every single day. As admins, we are architects. There's parts of our jobs that we have to think like an architect, and we have to make sure that we know how to do these things as an architect. So if you're just an admin, it doesn't matter. If you're just an architect, it doesn't matter. This content is relevant to all of you. That's really actually what I was trying to say. Anyway, I'll do a better job. Let me just go back here. So what is an architect? An architect is a big picture thinker and an in-depth problem solver. An architect chooses the best solution for a given set of requirements. Hey, I want an expense app. Can you build it for me? Sure. You then draw a picture and figure out what you want to do, but you figure out the best solution, because we all know in Salesforce, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to build an expense app or a job position app or whatever business requirement you have. It depends on the architect, how it gets architected. There's different ways to do it right. There's no single right way, typically, on how to do something in Salesforce. It all depends on the combination of the data model, where the data comes from, where the data needs to go. So choosing the best solution. An architect possesses a combination of strong, hard, and soft skills. One part that we often forget about is an architect's ability to communicate. It doesn't matter what your accent is. It doesn't matter if English is your first language or your third language. But an architect needs to be articulate. An architect needs to be able to think quickly, speak quick, and being able to explain complicated, complex scenarios and technical concepts in a way that non-technical people, especially kind of board level people, can understand. And that's a skill. And you can say, oh, but Charly, I don't know how to speak like that. I don't know how to dumb things down or how to be articulate. It's just a skill that you can learn. It's not something people get born with. It's a skill that you can learn and that you can practice and that you can get better at. And it's just as important as your technical skills. And then an architect must know when to configure and when to code. A lot of architects can't code. A lot of architects can't really configure. It doesn't matter if you can physically do it. I have some opinions on that, but you need to know which one to use when. The types of jobs today, I know I wrote down here solution architect, technical architect, enterprise architect, but there are actually so many. There are data architects, there are integration architects, and security architects, all just for the Salesforce platform, specific to the Salesforce platform. If you go by the certifications, we have the application architect and we have the system architect, and then combined gives you the technical architect. But when I use the word architect, I imply all of these. It's not just the CTA, the certified technical architect, it's all of the different types of architects. You do not need a cert to be an architect. Hear me on this. People are chasing certifications these days and posting them in LinkedIn and in a continuous feed of what seems like bragging about getting or taking a test. It's not about having a certification. The certification is a nice to have when you've done the hard work. It's by no means a definitive indication that you are a good architect. You just need to have the knowledge and a way to apply that knowledge. But don't stop doing certs. Certs are a really good way to show that you have those skills after you've gained experience in that area. So, what is an architect? An architect is like an admin. It's someone that really understands the platform. It's a big picture thinker. It's someone that can solution on the Salesforce practices, on the Salesforce platform using best practices. And that's all of us, right? Whether we build a custom field or whether we build a complex application with multiple integrations, we are all architects. Moving on. Now that we know we're all architects, how do we become a well-architected architect? And I'll give you some ideas of how to get there and what you need to focus on. But first of all, let's ask the question, what is a well-architected architect? I've been hearing this word well-architected for a while now, and I didn't really know where it came from. And then when Salesforce introduced the concept as well, I thought, oh, maybe I should pay attention and figure out what it actually means. But it seems, and I might be wrong, but it seems like AWS was the first to come up with this idea. And it describes something that is well architected, describes key concepts, design principles, and architectural best practices for designing and running whatever app in the cloud or whatever platform in the cloud. So it means that it is actually doing things according to best practice, choosing the best solution for your scenario, understanding the key concepts, the design principles, and the best practices. So someone came up with a word that described the stuff we've been doing for years. I wonder who it was, by the way. I don't know. I always say it's hard. And if you've ever listened to one of the Ladies Be Architects presentations, we always include this slide. It's hard to be what you can't see. In context of ladies in the architecture world, when Gemma and Susanna, sorry, I just spaced there for a minute. When Gemma and Susanna and myself started working on Ladies Be Architects and later our ambassadors or our other leaders joined, we were one of very few women in the world speaking up as Salesforce female architects because it didn't exist. And it was hard to be because you can't be what you can't see. You can't be a kind person if you're surrounded by a bunch of horrible people all day. You can't be, I'm running out of examples, but we just knew that we needed to step up and be an example. Now, for architects, we all have to be that well-architected architect. And if each one of us ensure that we do our architectures and our solutions correctly, we become that so that the next generations and the next wave of architects can learn from us. So it's always important to understand what impact we, not just me, you guys as well, have on the work you do every day, on the people you touch, and how people learn from what you do as an architect. So always make sure that you set that right example so that people will be what they see in you. So that's just a public service announcement. Now, moving forward, being well architected, Salesforce came up with this framework and I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense once you've wrapped your head around it. But there's three things. Being a well-architected architect means that you build solutions that are trusted, that are easy, and that are adaptable. You can say, but wait, Charly, hang on. Salesforce architecture is much more complicated than just trusted, easy, and adaptable. We have things like bulk API, and we have single sign-on and the dreaded OAuth, and we have integrations, and we have anti-patterns, and we have all these things with big words. Where does they fit in? Because you're telling me all it has to be is trusted, easy, and adaptable. Let me break it down for you. Step number one to becoming a well-architected architect is everything you do, from building one custom field or designing one flow or designing one integration, you've got to make sure it is trusted. The solution that you build must always be a trusted solution that protects your business and its stakeholders. In other words, it's got three main parts. Your solution has to be secure. Your solution has to be compliant, and your solution has to be reliable. All right, that makes more sense. So that all falls under trusted. Now, if we dig in one layer deeper, under secure, you have to think about your org security. You have to think about your session security, and you have to think about your data security. Under compliant, you have to think about legal adherence. You have to think about ethical standards and accessibility. And we can dive into those. You also have to make sure it's reliable. In other words, availability, performance, and scalability. So in essence, these 9 lighter blue blocks are the 9 core components you need to focus on in order to make sure that your solutions are trusted. Now, this framework that Salesforce gives us to being a well-architected architect has got the 3 components, right? We just said them. It's trust, easy. Can anyone say the third one? Adaptable. Trust, easy, and adaptable. We've just looked at trust, and I'm going to show you the ones for easy and adaptable as well. But there's not enough time for us in 2 hours to work through each block of each component of each section of the framework. So I'm just going to dive into the secure one, and I'll show you where on the web to find the rest of the details for all the others. And we could maybe do more sessions in the future to dive into some more of these. I'd be happy to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into org security. So it's just one of the 9 critical components to build a trusted solution. So when you think about your org security, it's about securing your organization against unauthorized access, right? Now, what are kind of red flags if you think of the Salesforce you're working on, the org that you're part of? What are red signs that you might have problematic organizational security when you have no real process to activate or deactivate users? You kind of log in and look at the login list. Oh, this person hasn't been here for years and they're still active. That should be a red flag to show that you aren't well architecting your org security. When you have unclear steps to update authorization for individual users when they change roles or system role changes. I've seen this often where John, who works in sales, moves into a sales support role, and they say, oh, Charlie, go and update his permissions to now be sales support. And you're like, okay, not really quite sure. Do I need to change his profile? Do I need to add a permission set? Do I need to add a permission set group? Or do I just go and add a lot of manual sharing? If that's the type of narrative you have in your organization, that's a big red flag. And then the third, this is not a definitive list, but these were the three biggest ones: relying on individuals with institutional knowledge for correct user security assignments. I see that in my job all the time, where someone will say, how do I know which permission? Oh, phone Sebastian. Sebastian knows. And Sebastian's an actual real life person. Everyone always says phone Sebastian. So that's a red flag. If only Sebastian knows what the correct user security assignments are, then you're in trouble. And it means you aren't adhering to the best practices of being a well-architected architect or having a well-architected system. So if you have red flags, or if you're starting greenfields, these are the things you need to think of when you are thinking of your solution. In terms of org security, there's two big buckets: authentication and authorization. Now, authentication is all about users. You shouldn't think of your users as persona. You should think about them as individuals. You then secondly have your UI-based access and your API-based access. And underneath those, for UI-based, you have password policies. In other words, how many characters can the passwords be? How often should they expire? Can they reuse passwords? Those are all password policies that you need to have a policy around and that you need to have an opinion about and enforce it. Multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, and any post-login steps that needs to be required. Those are all US-based access which you need to enforce. Then API-based access is all about API access control, API only access control. So for example, integration user, a user that logs into Salesforce, an application like MuleSoft, they will have their own user in Salesforce. That profile should actually have an API only profile or permission, that it doesn't allow UI based access because it's not needed. So a well-architected secure application would have those right guardrails in place. API-based access also includes certifications and keys, all of your connected apps that's set up, and all of the named credentials. Authorization, the second bucket, includes users treated as individuals, not personas as well, permission sets and groups, org-wide default and sharing, OAuth scopes, and the last one, all about list profiles, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But once you are authenticated, in other words, yes, you are allowed in, the authorization piece is, what are you allowed to do now that you are allowed in? So I think in one of my OAuth videos for Ladies Be Architects, I give the scenario of my son learning how to drive. And authentication is him asking for the car keys and me making sure, yes, it's my son, I actually know who he is and I recognize him and I give him my car keys. He applies for the car keys and I say, yeah, sure. And I give it to him. Authorization is saying, yes, sure, after I know it's my son, but it comes with rules. You can't drive faster than 45 miles an hour. You can't drive after dark. You can't have any passengers. You have to have the dash cam switched on, etc., etc. That's the scope of what he's allowed to do. That's what he's authorized to do while he's driving my car. So those are the two big buckets we think of when we think of org security. I want to quickly pivot and show you guys the Salesforce website and bookmark this, because this is what you need to live in. So it's architect.salesforce.com. And on the home page, you'll see the framework of trusted, easy, and adaptable. And if you go into the Well-Architected tab, you'll see the trusted, easy, and adaptable. So if we drill into trusted, I'll quickly show you the wealth of information that's here. There's a lot of information here, but this basically shows the exact same as the slide I had with the 9 blocks. So there's your 3 under secure, your 3 under compliant, and 3 under reliable. And we just talked about the organizational security, authentication, and authorization. This documentation framework goes into it in a lot of details, and it has links to all the documentation that you would need. What I love about the framework documentation is that it's links. It's not copying information from the help files or from other sources, but it's links, which means it'll always stay up to date, which is really helpful. Here's about this secure API-based access scenarios, and then sections about authorizations. One thing is, just because it's a bit of a soapbox for me, over the years, I've been working on the Salesforce platform since 2005. What does that make it? That's 5, 12, 17 years? That's a long time. Salesforce has changed a lot over the years. When I started working on Salesforce, we just had profiles. We didn't have permission sets, and we didn't have permission set groups. And the best practice back then was to create detailed, complex profiles in order to govern security. Over the years, with the advancements of permission sets and permission set groups, we are now at the point where we need to know that you should minimize the use of profiles. And that's something I'm wrapping my head around still, because I sometimes get stuck in the past. And as you can see here, and I had it on the slide, you must minimize the use of profiles and migrate any access controls out of profiles. That's why you have permission sets and permission set groups, and the ability. So profiles does provide the ability to limit your login IP ranges and login hours, things that were specifically tied to the legacy Salesforce Classic user interface. But those things you should migrate, the ones that you can, over to permission sets and permission set groups. That means you're adhering to well-architected best practices, which makes your solution more scalable and trusted. Okay, that was just my soapbox. I had to say that. If I go down in the framework, I can see that they've done a really good job of showing the patterns and the anti-patterns, for example, for authentication and authorization. So things to look out for in your org in both patterns and anti-patterns. And then the second one, the second of the third blocks would be security, session management, and the third one would be data security. And then it goes into detail. So there's a lot of information here. It's got a handy menu here: org security, session security, data security, and it tells you, also gives you a link to a lot of resources relevant to this section. So it's an amazing website, amazing framework. Please go visit it and make sure you spend time there. All right, I'm going to jump back. So this was just a small deep dive into that one of the 9 blocks of org security. And as you saw, the rest of that framework page showed security, session security, and data security. Now, step 2, the first one was trusted. The second one is easy. A solution that is easy delivers value fast. We saw that during COVID. During COVID, I was tasked to come up with a solution really quickly on how the vaccines were managed for different states. Remember those days when we used to see in the news there's 3,000 vaccines available and it's being dispatched, and everybody was thinking, how am I going to get one? Where am I going to get one? And no one knew. We had the incredible privilege to work on a Salesforce system for vaccine management, but we had like 4 weeks to do it in, and to design, architect, build, and deploy a full production-ready system that will manage COVID vaccines. We kept it easy. In hindsight, There were things we could have done different, but time was at an essence, but we kept it easy so that we could deliver the value fast. And the Salesforce platform made it really easy for us to make it easy. There were out-of-the-box components that we could use and mash together in order to create an easy solution, a solution that was maintainable, that was intentional, that had clear logic, that had data integrity, etc., etc. And it worked really well. Jingjing, I see you come off video. Did you want to say something? You're welcome to if you wanted to. You're on mute if you're saying something.
No, I don't have any comment. You can keep going.
Oh, okay, good. You're welcome to, if you guys have questions or want to talk about something that I'm saying, you're welcome to just interrupt me, and happy to have a conversation and not just hear my own voice the whole time. So easy means it's simple, it's automated, and it's engaging. So under simple, readability is super important, maintainability, intentionality. Under automated, clear logic, data integrity, and aligned to business value. That is so super important. As architect, you have a real responsibility to make sure that you are not just providing features or functionality because Salesforce does it, but that it's actually adding value to the business. And the third leg of easy is engaging. It's got to be streamlined and it's got to be helpful. So let me switch back to the website and we can quickly have a look here at easy. And so there is our 8 sections that we just went through, the 3 in simple, the 3 in automated, and the 2 in engaging. And for example, you'll see under helpful, you've got what is helpful in a solution is notifications and messaging, in-app guidance, recognition, and rewards. And if we were to drill down one level further into helpful, you'll see all the patterns and framework in on what to do with notifications and messages, or how to use in-app guidance, some of the standards, and then how to utilize recognition and rewards. So things that we wouldn't normally think of as part of solutioning as an architect now becomes really important. Again, they gave us patterns and anti-patterns, which is really, and a whole bunch of tools, and even told us whether they're streamlined or helpful. To see how amazing the framework is if you dive into it. All right, so step 2 was easy. Step 1 was trusted. Step 3 is adaptable. So a Salesforce solution that is adaptable evolves with the business. You just heard me say how much Salesforce have changed over the last 17 years. Salesforce is going to continue changing and evolving and growing, and you have to design to minimize any technical debt. You have to always try and keep your solution adaptable and scalable. Salesforce does the rest. If you follow best practices, I'm not saying it can never happen, but the chances of what you're building is breaking because of new functionality is very much minimized if you follow the well-architected principles. I'm sorry. So under resilient, you have incident response, continuity planning, and ALM, application lifecycle management. Under composable, you have the separation of concerns. Oh, I think there's a spelling error. Sorry for that. Interoperability and packageability. I never knew packageability was a word, but it is. And then I added a third one because we've been working in threes and I'm an architect. I like patterns. There isn't a fun one on the official framework, but in Charly World, I added a third component under adaptable and I called it fun. And I'm going to be working on filling this out and kind of finding architectural framework components on how you make an application fun. But it should be fun, guys. We are delivering systems and solutions for people that do use Salesforce in their jobs. and they use it for 8 hours a day. Why wouldn't we make things fun for people? Why wouldn't we have confetti raining down on the screen? Why wouldn't we have a jingle playing when an opportunity closes or when a case is successfully solved? We as architects must remember the end users working on the system every day, and it is okay to have fun. We are allowed to have fun. So I am officially putting in fun as an architectural principle in the framework. I might get into trouble with Salesforce, but I'll deal with that. Don't worry. And May, you were going to say something?
I love that you added fun as one of the component. I think even Salesforce is thinking on those lines of, but it's kind of pursued as this is my UX team, this is my strategy team, but it actually boils down to that adoption and driving that. So I think adding that fun factor, like a little magic dust, that just a huge driver in the adoption overall and overall long-term success to me. So I love that you added that third component there.
Oh, you just help me. We can do this together quickly. I'm gonna add this in here. So yeah, UI, UX, and it's CX these days, right?
Yes.
I think that's one of the key critical components of the fun part of the framework. Yeah, we have to have fun, guys. If you do this so many hours every day, then at least it should be fun. All right, so let's jump back to the website and let's go look at the adaptable. So under adaptable, we see we have resilient with the 3, composable with the 3, and of course we have the third main category here, fun, and with the UI, UX, and CX, and we'll figure out what the other 2 still is, because we like patterns, right? And if we dive into resilient, for example, you'll see incident response. So making sure, so it's audit trails and incident response, prioritizing, recovering, triaging, monitoring, alerting, recovering. So this is all about the security and security components of your org and access control. I recently heard a story online of an org that was hacked and there were lots of data breached, and that's scary. And you as an architect needs to make sure that if a vulnerability could be exploited, that your solution can withstand it, first of all, and second of all, that you can track it, you can triage it, you can prioritize it, you can fix it, you can recover from that. And that's part of what you need to consider when you are building a solution. If we jump to continuity planning, you'll see that this is all about recovery, and inside your testing, building the backup and restore, and all the capabilities. And then under application lifecycle management, we have the whole release management, environment strategy, testing strategy, and it also takes you through patterns and anti-patterns. So super interesting. And that's the last one of the third step. Now, some of you will ask me, but Charly, how does this tie into certifications? I don't think we've done that yet, to tie the direct tie from the certifications and the trailhead module straight into the framework, but I think it's a logical next step for Salesforce to tackle. But for example, release management environment strategy is all part of the development and deployment designer exam that's available for you to take. And there's, of course, a lot of trailheads and a lot of documentation and training around that. So I think a good approach would be to tie the 3 components of trust, easy, and adaptable, and each one of their components back to the certification matrix so that we can show how to get more information. So that's your 3 steps to becoming a well-architected architect. It's trusted, it is easy, and it's adaptable. There's one last thing I want to talk about. And you guys are very quiet, so we're going really quickly through this. But one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it is diagramming, drawing your solution, drawing each one of these components according to best practices in a diagram. Salesforce have gone to great lengths to help us, the architect team, to help us to be able to draw this, because I have seen all kinds of drawings over my career. I am one of the culprits who've drawn really ugly drawings over the years. Some of those Ladies Be Architect videos, you can see me drawing stuff. It's not recommended. And I'm so glad they finally came out with a templated best practice approach on how to do your diagrams. So it's important to understand that there are 4 levels of diagrams that you need to think of as an architect. Your first level would be the big picture. That's the 50,000 foot view, where you see the least granularity, there's no fine detail, and highest complexity. So what I want to show you is an example of that. I'm going to drag another screen on here. This is one of the Lucidchart templates that Salesforce provides us. And I'll show you where they provide this. This is a level 1 drawing. So this level 1 drawing shows you a commerce solution, indicating the mix of the Salesforce products. You can see experience, CDP, sales, service, and other technologies that is planned for this implementation. So you can see there's Commerce Cloud, there's Marketing Cloud, and it rightly shows them as being off the core platform. This is core. You've got Slack, you've got Tableau here, you've got MuleSoft, and then you've got external systems, for example, an inventory, a finance, or a fulfillment system. And I love the way that Salesforce have templated the capabilities of the different pieces of the platform with icons. And now you can use those icons within your diagram to show the capabilities on core or on MuleSoft or on any other of the adjoining. So this is a great template to use for level 1. I'm going to see if I've got it. Salesforce also allows you for, not allows, but released shape libraries. So all the product logos and all the product icons you can use you can just open the shape library in Lucidchart and then use them in your drawings, which makes life a lot easier. So that's an example of a system 1 drawing, a level 1 drawing, I'm sorry. And then a level 2 drawing. Here's a level 2 drawing. This, for example, is the same one, but it goes to the next level, showing the products and technology directly involved in this commerce solution. So instead of just seeing commerce, we now can see we've got CC Storefront and we've got the Okapi, and it's connected via B2B Commerce Connector. Instead of just a line, it now tells us what is the connection mechanism. For example, we now can see Tableau is connected to MuleSoft through the Tableau connector. Salesforce is connected to MuleSoft through the Salesforce connector, etc. So now it's giving us that next level of detail, showing us more information of the actual solution. Again, using the same principles of using the icons for features and the product icons for each one of the individual products and features inside core and the other products. I really love that. So you're going to say, Charlie, where do I find this? So if I can just find my right browser again. On the architect.salesforce.com, we have diagrams, and they have a pre-built template gallery to get you started. So let me just scroll down a bit. I'm just looking for the right one. But these, you'll see all of these are level 2 drawings. There's some level 3 drawings here. And then you'll see there's also some capability maps that they've released. And they have tagged it. So it's either capability map or a solution architecture. And you can open it in Lucidchart and use it, reuse it, save it. May, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I want to just add, just pile on someone what you said, right? I mean, y'all, what Charlie is showing here is actually a gold mine. I mean, speaking from my own experience whenever I'm dealing with clients, and especially during that initial phase where we are just starting to engage, when there are lots of questions, lots of uncertainty at different levels of stakeholders, these drawings and with those logos, what Charlie was mentioning, that that worked just well for me because, hey, first of all, as soon as I saw the logos of Salesforce and MuleSoft there, it just established my credibility. Hey, this guy is legit. He knows what he's talking about. And
Yeah.
it also helped to keep that conversation on track rather than getting down in certain rabbit holes saying, oh, once you start talking about integration, it's so easy to get down to the level of what type of connection and what resources do we need. Well, hold on, just zoom out. We're just talking about really level one right now, just letting you know which tools will be in the mix, and then level two will go a little bit more zoomed and more focused conversation. So this is thank you for sharing this.
Yes, and the library is growing by the day. So keep on checking back. Don't think, oh, it doesn't have my specific use case here, so I'm not going to use it. I had to, I think 2 weeks ago, do a use case for Health Cloud, and I couldn't find one here in the template, but I could use one of these and repurpose it and redraw it. Also, here at the top, it has the data models. I love these drawings. Previously, Salesforce had some ERD and data model diagrams on the developer.force.com site, and those things made my head hurt. These ones are beautiful and they're amazing. So, for example, I clicked into the Sales Cloud one, and I can just open it in Lucidchart and let it open up. And I can use it. So as an architect, if I'm busy building a solution using the Sales Cloud data model, I can open this up and I can say, okay, we're not using assets, so I can delete the asset, or we're not planning on using campaign, so I can delete campaign. It just makes it so much easier for you to be able to start off with a base for your data model instead of having to draw everything from scratch and maybe getting something wrong. It also shows you the absolutely super important relationships between the objects and this cardinality, so that you as an architect can make sure that you design it correctly and that you're thinking of everything. If you think it's if you were thinking, oh, my solution says I need a junction object, you can quickly check in your data model and see if it will be possible to create a junction between the standard objects or whatever your use case is. It also teaches you by being the example on how to draw things. So it shows you how to draw an object, how to draw a record type, how to draw a conceptual record or object, and how to draw a super type. It shows you how to model the relationships. And these things are critical. We are really required to do these things standardized. I've seen so many versions of how to draw this correctly based on the architect or who they are. And it's good that Salesforce is now standardizing it and giving us the keys on how to build these things. But yeah, very, very powerful to get these drawings straight from the framework. Also under the framework, so I showed you the template gallery. Under the framework, there's a couple of blog posts on just talking about how to build it, what to think of, how to diagram kits. You can download them, how to notate your data model. There's a lot of good information here that if you work through it, you'd really be well on the way to being a well-architected architect. And then, of course, under here, we have design patterns. So as you're solutioning individual solutions, remember, as architects, we draw out everything. We're always making, as I call them, ugly drawings. Here you can come get at least a sample to start off and then model from, or just coming to see how it gets drawn and reusing it. So pub sub unique copies. So you can use that copy. A fan out approach. Here they've used the fan out to do a claim check. Here it's the streaming, queuing, etc. Here we've got Heroku Connect in. This one has a retail loyalty management process that'll show you all the time-based interactions. So there's a lot of good templates that you can work from on this page. On the rest of the website or the framework, they also have I'm not drilling into it, we can maybe do another section and going through some of the decision guides available. But there's a lot of guides available here on how to choose, how to decide how you should do it. So building a form. How many times have you had to sit down and build a form? Oh, they want a form on the experience or the community where they can fill in their details and they'll get an email. Here, they give you a decision map on how to decide on what would be. Should you use a dynamic form? Should you use a screen flow? Should you use a screen flow with Lightning Web Component, or should it be a Lightning Web Component? Everything from low code to pro code, and what features are available for what you want to do. So it's really exciting to see that they're putting these decision guides in here for you to help you figure out which tool to use and how to use it. I really do love this. There's some more resources as well, some blogs, and then, of course, links to connect with all the architects, the YouTube channel and the LinkedIn page and the Trailblazer community. And this is continuing to grow. Salesforce is spending a lot of time and resources in building out this framework for us so that we know exactly how to become the best architects that we need to be. Let me just jump to my slides. I think this was my last slide. Yes, I want to say being a well-architected architect is both an art and a science. As I said earlier, there's no real right or wrong answer when you design your Salesforce solutions, but there's definitely a best practice. It all depends on so many factors. How big's your org, how old's your org, how much money do you have, how many resources do you have, how much data do you have, what tools are accessible to you. But you, as an architect or an aspiring architect, can always make sure that at least you are following best practices. You are choosing the best solution for your circumstances. And as long as you're loving what you're doing and you're creating art, the science will take care of itself if you follow the best practices. Well, guys, that's all I have. Any questions, any discussion points you have for me?
Yes, I have a question. Every time we always talk about like best practice, everyone always love this word and best practice, and sometimes confused because where do we learn of this best practice? Some of the best practice usually come from my experience, right? But do we have like the actual the resource like maybe provided by Salesforce? Yeah, here's the best practice, and we should follow it, because sometimes the best practice come from really individual experience. They think like this best practice, another person maybe think the best practice is different. So what do we have like a right, like standardized way called best practice from like Salesforce?
We absolutely do. Let me share my screen again. What I've been showing you is actually the best practice. So let me make it more tangible. For example, let's say you have to build a flow, right? And you want to know what's the best practice for building a flow. So it needs to be trusted, it needs to be easy, and you need to make sure that's part of the best practice. But part of it, it needs to have clear logic. So under clear logic, you need to make sure it's composable. You need to do error handling. So error handling, what is the error handling approach for building a flow? That's where you'll drill into the documentation, and all of this is the best practice on how to do it. All of this have links. Some of these links go straight to Trailhead or to help documentation that shows you exactly how to do this, and examples. So as long as you adhere to the principle, then you're following the best practice. But this framework, whether you're an admin or an architect, tells you exactly how to do it. And it's got links to actual trailheads and help files and everything you need. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally makes sense. And also, I think there's a lot of help document from Salesforce. I consider that also as a best practice. That's to teach us, how we do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
May, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you hit the nail on its head, right? The best practices is a kind of term, and I hear you, right? So let's say if someone says best practices, that's best for you because you're a product company, whereas I'm a service company, it may not be best for me. So I look at it as like going to Boston Robbins. There's different flavors there. You mix and match whatever works best for you, and that becomes your best practice. So it is pretty contextual, but sometimes I use the word leading practice instead of best practice when I'm working with certain industry, when I want to leverage, let's say, one financial services company is using these practices that's working well for them. Chances are it will also work for you because you're also financial services. Same thing with health cloud. So sometimes I use the word leading practice, which essentially nothing but learning from someone else's experiences, using those and then putting it in our context.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to request everyone, if you all have any kind of experiences to share or chime in, please do. And everyone should be, you all can unmute yourselves and be able to chime in there too. Just want to throw it out there.
I put it in the chat. The decision guides are really useful as well when trying to understand best practices or verify, right? Because I think it was mentioned, but there's a lot of kind of almost tribal knowledge, if you will, or things we keep hearing, right? Like, don't put data elements in a loop. Okay, well, why actually? Why do we not do that? So going through, for example, the record triggered automation decision guide is really, really helpful because the architect team has, first of all, it guides you through, what's recommended, what's not recommended in terms of different tools you can use. But then they also have different experiments they've done to basically showcase and prove that these tools are more efficient, or this is why you shouldn't have data elements or DML statements in a loop, for example. And so not only are they telling you the best practice, but they're also showing you evidence why these are the recommended ways to do things or not do things. And for me, this especially because I've spent a lot of time building flows in the last few years, this guide has been like my Bible, basically, to inform and also back up my own design principles and decisions to a client. I mean, no client is probably going to read through this, but if I can say that, this is the recommended way to do it because, of all of these reasons, and this is based on the architect's guide, from Salesforce, that is, I think, a really useful way to, follow the best practices, but also back up your design decisions.
Yeah, I love that. For me, it takes away that imposter syndrome feeling I have, because I'm like, yeah, I didn't think I'll do my own design. I think, yes, this is good. I'll validate it using a decision guide and making sure I'm thinking about it correctly. And then it makes me feel better because it's not just me that says so. It's actually documented by Salesforce. So you're absolutely correct with that. This is the record triggered automation decision guide that I just opened as you were talking. So for those of you that haven't seen it, for example, if you want to have a flow that does cross object, create, read, update, or delete, then you can't use a before save flow trigger. You can do an after save flow trigger, and Apex, and or an Apex trigger. For example, if you want to do a flow with complex list processing, it's not ideal to use an after save flow trigger, but it's possible, but you can potentially have limitations and considerations. So the best way would be is an after save flow trigger plus an Apex trigger, or plus Apex, or just an Apex trigger. So this is kind of how it helps you choose and make a decision based on best practice. Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah, I have another thought. I find it really interesting that these architect guides or the framework of trusted, easy, adaptable, and then the breakdown of each section to me is very simplified, which at first thought almost seems antithetical to an architect because architecting is so complex. But I think that's actually quite brilliant because you want to keep it simple and kind of guide through and break things down from there. But in the end it is complex, but I think at a high level it's simple, right? And so I don't know. I feel like it's very daunting when you get into this realm, right? And you're trying to get into the weeds, but it's good sometimes to take a step back and think of the exact reasons why we do things or the guiding principles behind it. So I thought that was helpful.
I always think Salesforce architecture looks so super complicated from a high level view. But when you zoom in, it's actually simple things. It's like creating the right type of field. Don't create a checkbox, create a pick list. I'm just saying. It's really simple, doing simple things right. But when you do a lot of them and you zoom out, it looks super crazy and complicated. And I think that's why I also love the way they set up the framework, because it helps us think in those simple terms, to so that we can design the best solutions.
I just want to pop in real quick and say thank you, Charly. This is great information. I love this site so much because you can find so many different pieces and parts of what's being an architect about, but you presented it really well. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to hear you. I can't see you. It's nice to hear you.
I'm actually traveling for business and I'm in a hotel room, so I'm just kind of keeping the video off for now.
That's fine. Yes, I one of the feedback I gave to the architect team is the site to me felt confusing at first. When I first went through it and it got released, I thought, oh, it doesn't make sense, just a lot of text. There's not enough pictures for my brain. I need simple pictures. And I ended up drawing the blocks so that I can organize it. And once I saw the blocks, I thought, that makes sense. It's threes, sets of threes in every section. And so it is feedback that we gave Salesforce and said, please add some more pictures. And we told them to put some more Salesforce characters on there. We need more cartoons. We're Salesforce people after all. You can't make it too formal. And hopefully they've heard the feedback and they'll be making some changes soon. Yes, we do need Ruth there. That was one of my first things, is there's no Ruth on that website. It makes no sense.
I was curious. So I know you work for CGI, as you mentioned earlier. Are you also a part of the Salesforce Architect team, or what is your connection there? Or is it as an MVP that you're so involved with the architect kind of group and work there?
I don't work for Salesforce. One day I'll work for Salesforce. It's still on my bucket list. I think everybody wants to work at the mothership one day. But no, I don't work for them. But from the early days when we started the Ladies Be Architects group, Salesforce, we've always worked really closely with the Salesforce Architect group. In fact, Susanna Kate, she's one of the Ladies Be Architect co-leads. She's joined the Salesforce Architect group. She's actually now working with Zane as an architect ambassador. I don't know what they're now, architect relations something. She's got some really awesome title at Salesforce. So we work and Salesforce reaches out to the architects in the community often and asks for feedback, and invites us to come and talk to them and give them feedback on things. So just being part of the community and responding to their requests for feedback and help is one of the ways that I keep involved and work with them.
Very
And
cool.
that's not,
Thanks.
it's not exclusive, it's open to anyone. So if I live on the Trailhead community a lot, and they post things on the architect groups there. So if you see something, respond to it. They're always looking for new ideas, new faces, new blood to help build out this framework.
Yeah, thanks. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any thoughts or any questions for Charly? Okay.
I have a
Hey,
quick
Paul.
question. Hi. So for someone that's relatively new, right, and wanting to, work their way through to architect level, right? My current thought process is kind of, for me, is kind of going and focusing on all the different clouds, and then to get to architect status, right? Is that possible, feasible, without ever getting too involved in developments and not having to get certified from any developer certifications? Or would you touch on it but not necessarily be the be all end all? You'll still kind of get there one day, is kind of maybe my question, without getting too into the weeds from a development and code perspective.
As a successful architect, you need to be able to, at a minimum, be able to read and understand code. Even
I
a
can
solution.
I can read and manipulate. I've been able to do that. Now that's
Yeah.
kind of how I figure stuff out is, well, yeah, that says that, it's doing that. Okay, well, I want to do that slightly different. I can, read it and understand it, but if you had said to go do it from scratch, I'll be like, oh, heck, no, I can't do that. But reading and manipulating, it's easy enough.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You need to remember, as an architect, when you get to that certain level of architect, you tend, the more well versed you become as an architect, the more hands-off keyboards you get. The more you start designing, the less you actually do in Salesforce. You end up drawing lucid chart diagrams for a living instead of actually building anything. But you need to be able to design, understand, read, code patterns, integration patterns. I can't write a line of Java to save my life. I've done the course but if you say to me, Charly, sit down and write, I'm going to say no. I'll copy and paste someone else's and change it a bit. And so that's why no one employs me as a developer. But I don't need to as an architect, but I do need to understand how it works, the limits, the implications, how to choose which tool to use. Those things are important. And if you're starting off with your architect career and you're trying to think, I think 15 years ago, you could have been one of those people who did it all. I was lucky to be one of them. I started my career as an accidental everything, and did analyst work and data work and creating fields and doing data migrations and being a BA. And I kind of had to wear all the hats. The platform has grown so much that I don't know if there's enough time in a person's lifetime to still be an expert on every part of Salesforce. So I've often seen that one of the quickest paths to becoming an architect is to not so much focus on a specific cloud like Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, but to focus on being a platform specialist. In other words, if I have to tactically do it, make sure you're a good admin. Understand everything about admin. So the security layer, the data layer, understand all of those things. And then from there, understand how the platform works, how integration works. The Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Clouds, those are all kind of specializations on and focusing on specific objects and specific functionality. Which is needed at some points, but I think that's a harder path to get to becoming an architect than just focusing on admin, platform, app builder, platform developer, identity, and access management, sharing and visibility. If you follow the pyramid, it gives you a good path of becoming an architect.
All right, cool.
If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, no, it does. And sorry, like I say, again, it's being new, just trying to understand stuff. Which kind of path to follow, how to get to the end goal.
Yeah.
And just piecing that all together. And like you say, that's why do you need to be able to code? Well, no, you don't. As long as you can read it, you don't necessarily need to be able to fully code. So that's good to know, because I was just trying to figure out is there any particular like areas of focus that kind of help you make the journey that little bit easier. I mean, not to say that it's easy, but that's to say it's make it a little bit easier
Yeah.
to get there.
Do you know the triangle? Do you know what I mean when I say that, the triangle?
No.
Okay. Let me show you. So if I go to Salesforce and I go to credentials and I go to architect, what I do get is the triangle.
Okay.
The triangle gives us the steps you need to get to becoming a CTA. But you don't need to be, as I said earlier, you don't need to be a CTA, certified technical architect. But being a good architect means you do a big majority of the triangle. So you would start at the bottom. When you get everything on the left side, it means you become an application architect. When you do everything on the right side, you become a system architect. And once you've got both, you can go to the next step to become a certified technical architect.
Okay.
But for example, application architect is more for the functional, the more config, point and click minded person. And the system architect is more for the coder, more technical type people. I always talk about Salesforce people either as functional people or technical people. Functional people are the point and clickers, the configuration guys, and the technical guys are more the coders. So on the left-hand side, you have platform app builder and platform developer one, sharing and visibility, and then data architect. If you get those 4 certs, you're then an application architect. On the other side, you have PD1, integration architect, identity and access management, and development lifecycle and deployment. That's the one that's all about sandboxes and release management and CI/CD. And if you get those 4, you're a system architect. So this is a good path for you to start on the left bottom, work up. And if you have the stomach for it, start on the right from the bottom, work up. And then that will give you a good foundation. Sometimes you'll take a detour. I know halfway through my pyramid, I went on and did other things like CPQ and things that aren't part of the tips. Often you detour off the triangle, but you always come back and finish up the rest of it.
That's cool. That's interesting. I'll go look at that. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Maybe we can do, and maybe one day we'll do a session just on this, on how to build your architect path and what steps to take and where you can get help.
That would be fantastic. And I know that's a question in front of many people, like, hey, where should I start? Because there's a lot of things and we need a way to say, oh, okay, these are like bite-sized pieces I'm going to go with. Like I'm going to go for like app builder first. And as you said, like application architect is my first goal and then move on to, that'll be fantastic, Charly, to have that kind of path laid out. So absolutely. That could be a session by itself for sure.
Well, just let me know. Happy to oblige.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any questions? Any thoughts, anyone? First of all, thank you, Charly, for being here. This was amazing, and we all learned a lot. And appreciate everybody for you who all are here. And this this is possible all because of you. And as you'll know, starting this group a little bit slowly. This is your group. So please reach out if you have any suggestions, anything that we could do differently, anything that would add more value that you're looking for. I'm always up for that. So yeah, please reach out, and thank you all for being here and being a part of the Trailblazer community and the success of this group. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and thanks for joining.
Thank you, Charly. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen. Bye, everyone.